station. This is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, this is the station. I'm ready for the event.
ESA, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Hello, Luca. This is Palazzo Chigi in Rome. How do you hear me?
Guten Morgen, Carmen. I hear you loud and clear. How about me?
All good. I hand now over to Prime Minister Conte.
Buongiorno colonnello Parmitano, che piacere vederla. Ci dica se è giorno o notte sulla stazione spaziale internazionale. Lo dico a beneficio di tutti. In 24 ore voi avete 16 albe e 16 tramonti.
16 dawns and 16 sunsets. This is Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte.
Signor Presidente, benvenuto a bordo della
Mr. Prime Minister, good morning and welcome to the International Space Station. More specifically, the Columbus module, our European contribution. We just went over the Terminator, so the line that goes from night to day. So we just said the dawn, and we're right over the coast of North America, going into the Atlantic in southeast direction, moving towards Brazil's coast, and then down towards the South Atlantic. What a great emotion. It sounds like science fiction movies, but here it's not science fiction, it's technology. I confess that I'm particularly emotional seeing one of our representatives on the International Space Station, whom I consider the outpost of humanity in space, and also a major engineering feat, as it was explained to me, that is going around the planet at 28,000 kilometers per hour at 400 kilometers of altitude. We have some great guests. We have the Honorable Riccardo Fraccaro, who coordinates the space politics, and then President Roberto Chieppa, who's Secretary General of the government, and then the Chief of Staff, Alberto Rosso, and Admiral Massagli, who covers matters of space and aerospace. And we have another guest, Mr. Werner, who is the director of ESA, the European Space Station. As you know, we have a law here in Italy, Law 7 of 2018, that reorganized the governance of space matters, and this gives whoever speaks to the Prime Minister great purview, and also established a committee for politics for space and aerospace. There are 12 ministers, as well as a president, and this allowed us to make a big jump ahead in terms of space policy. And now we have the efficacy of this great governance that also allowed us to cover a more important role in this field, even in European and international policy. And we had over $2.2 billion in contribution. We are in the third spot as the contributor to ESA. We had a council with ESA last year, and we're continuing to invest even in the optional programs, even compared to what we were doing in 2016. So we're very much involved because we believe that the national and international programs, especially those connected to ESA, with whom we work with for over 50 years, but it's a strategic sector for us because participating in this field of technology, so not only effort, mental, but this allows us to develop a greater knowledge about our planet. And now you're going to tell us a little bit about it. You're going to explain to us a little bit about the universe that we're in and the potential of exploration that comes from space. And we have to say, also in terms of applications to the benefit of citizens and security and institutions. We guarantee the 16% of contributions on future efforts. And so the government will continue to make such a contribution. And I have to say that in this sector, we are demonstrating, as in other sectors, that we know what we're doing. So there's not only the Italian system, but it also has to do with our industry. So there's an Italian system, a European system that's working really well. And this can generate growth and employment, development, and innovation. But now I have a lot of curiosity. You have to let it out. I'd like to ask, in less than a month, if I'm not mistaken, February 6th, your experience will conclude your mission. It's a mission that saw you in the middle with great responsibilities and effort because the commander of the station, for the first time in Italian, it hasn't happened before. Can you tell us already to make a statement about this experience? Mr. President, first of all, thank you for expressing in a very thorough way many of the things that, as far as I'm concerned, space represents. Everything that the importance geopolitical, economical, and strategic of space, of course, aside from, obviously, the technological and scientific one, which is our core business. First, I'd like to take advantage of 1 second to say hello to all the guests whom I have had the pleasure of meeting. I struggle to think about the entire mission today because we have three extremely busy operations, 2 EVAs to complete the upgrade of the power distribution system of the International Space Station. So we're installing new batteries, lithium batteries, that this year they won the Nobel Prize. And then an additional EVA to complete the activation of our alpha magnetic spectrometer, the AMS, which has great Italian participation. So we have almost a month ahead of us that's extremely difficult. But what I can say that until now, the entire mission, even before my command, and the part where I've been acting as commander, these months have been that they've had some incredible months in the quantity of work that was done, and I believe that my crew, and in this case I'm going to set myself aside because it's not my merit, but it's my crew's merit. You know, we're talking about teamwork. We are an important example of teamwork, not just the crew on board, but even the one on the ground that allowed us to complete some records of utilization. So in terms of how much science we've been able to execute in 1 week and 1 month. We hit a record with EVAs by renovating the batteries with the first EVA since I got here, and then the repair of the AMS. And finally, a record number of experiments here on board, thanks to the arrival of a record number of vehicles for resupply that allowed us to really rapidly exchange science experiments that we do here on board. And then, if you allow me, I'd like to make some examples that link back to what you've talked about in terms of effects of scientific discovery down on Earth from what we do here on board. Yes, but obviously you talked about your activities, your extravehicular activity. Those are hazardous. In those moments, did you need to confront with some difficulties that you felt were really hazardous? And then I'd like to know and understand how your test pilot in the Air Force, how your experience came in handy. I will answer easily to the first question. Extravehicular activities always have a very high component of risk. I myself have felt this on my own skin in my first mission 6 years ago during my second EVA when my spacesuit had a failure, causing water to come into my helmet, putting my life in danger. So, by comparison, these EVAs that I've done this round and the 3 that I've done thus far, even though the difficulty level was much higher, we did not have any issues from a technical standpoint, only that of the work itself, which has been done for the very first time. The type of work that we performed to repair the AMS was especially designed for this kind of activity. It was never done before. We installed a new cooling pump by connecting cooling tubings. So we had to cut the existing tubing and then connect them in a permanent way. So definitely very difficult due to the kind of materials that we utilized, the tools that were designed especially for this over the last 4 to 5 years on Earth, the training that my colleague and I received was very important. An aspect that was particularly difficult was that I worked almost exclusively from the Canadian robotic arm. So this means that during the majority of this time, I was connected to the ISS exclusively through an interface that locks my feet to the robot arm. And then I can swivel from the station. So in case of danger, there are some additional risks to be able to come back and ingress into the airlock. So all this means that there is a very specific ground training so that you can set aside all thoughts of fear and difficulty and just concentrate on the task at hand. So I would like to say that on this, the merit is more of those people who train us and give us information so that we can concentrate on the work even in extreme conditions. As far as the second question, the training of a test pilot has some specifics that are very similar to those of an astronaut. So I would say that all my baggage of training as combat pilot and then test pilot has contributed into giving me a background of contingencies emergencies and emergencies. An astronaut, like a pilot, is prepared to think about contingencies using checklists and procedures. But in an emergency, when there are no procedures, you have to understand by yourself how to resolve issues. This is when your training comes into play. And so this is how, as a test pilot, I've been able to experiment and utilize this formation so that responding to emergencies becomes second nature. You in this mission have worked on many experiments, Italian, European, and you've done 4 EVAs. So there has to have been a time in which you have made us very proud to have an Italian. So you're inspiring the next generations. Do you feel this responsibility? Mr. President, the responsibility of those who have a visible platform is the same for everyone. It doesn't have anything to do with followers. We have to maintain responsibility of corresponding and sending a message that's positive of what we're doing. I believe that people do not follow me as Luca Parmitano, but they follow me as the astronaut because I represent a pinnacle of excellence of an Italian product, as you have mentioned during your opening remarks. So I feel responsible in that I'm an ambassador of a series of values that are Italian, European, and that have to do with the world in which we live. And then I'd like to remind that our President Mattarella has talked about hope. So I hope that I can give a message of hope, that my interpretation is that I have the possibility ahead of me to be able to complete some goals. I've been very privileged in this, and that Italy has always given me this opportunity, this great hope to keep pressing on with goals to reach. And I believe that people understand this. In my message, I always want to talk about hope, give it to young people, especially, and those who are in school today, those studying in college, that there is the opportunity to look ahead and set some projects and goals to reach. So while you're talking, I see a beautiful big Italian flag behind you. Can you tell us how much of Italy is in this project, in this space station? How much technology was developed in our country and that is present on the station? Mr. President, thank you for the question. For once, I would like to utilize an adjective that I always use very seldom, which is pride. As Italian, I can be proud of the presence of our country here on board, represented not only by me and the flag, but also by the module in which I am. The engineering structure of the Columbus lab has been built in Italy, as has been Note 2, Note 3, the PMM module, which is a logistic module, as well the cupola, which is where the majority of our pictures are taken. In this moment, we also have on board the greatest cargo ship of the ISS program, which is the Cygnus, which just arrived here. It just arrived, and it's the most modern. And this, too, was built in Italy by our industries. The habitation module, the pressurized habitation module, right now is almost about 50% an Italian product. This is concerning the aerospace engineering, but then we have all the science that has come here from Italy. Absolutely innovative experiments that I have participated to, especially recently. Last month, we installed in the Russian module with the Russian-Italian cooperation a photography system to be able to photograph, if I'm not mistaken, almost 100,000 pictures per second, some ultraviolet pictures, so that we can see a spectrum that we've never seen before. Just recently, we just sent back to Earth an experiment from the Italian Space Agency, how an experiment that how animals change here and how they can reintegrate. And also experiments on physiology, of which I have been a subject here in the Columbus module, a study on how the metabolism changes, human metabolism, and how to balance the expenditure of energy with that is ingested through food. How do you balance it? And how all the sounds externally in the space station have an influence on the human ear. So these are just some examples of Italian participation from a scientific and technological sense. So I can say with pride that perhaps our financial contribution is in the third place out of all the countries out of the European Space Agency. However, when it comes to scientific and technological contribution, we're definitely up there on the podium. Thank you so much. Everything very interesting. I'm so happy to be able to talk to you. I have to let Onorevole Fraccaro. Good days, Colonel. We spoke on October 2nd over the phone when you took over command of the ISS. Since then, we have pressed on with great effort the mission of our Prime Minister to augment our financial contribution into space, and we've had some great results. Thank you with the collaboration of everyone. I believe that space will have a geostrategic importance over the years and an important impact on technology and industry for our country, but also social, because fortunately, you astronauts remind us constantly what Earth looks like from above, that there's an ecosystem that we must protect all together. I would like to conclude by inviting you, and this is a request that we are going to use to close this contact. When you come back to Italy, to Rome, to Earth, we'd like to invite you to the Comet so that you can debrief us on the final results of your mission, as well as the experiments that you're conducting from Italy that also have the goal of improving life on Earth. So an invitation to come to Rome, to Palazzo Chigi, so that you can inform us on the great experience that you have carried on.
Signor Sottosegretario, mi ricordo benissimo della nostra telefonata.
Secretary, thank you so much. I remember the phone call, and this invitation is for me an occasion to demonstrate how the impact, technological and scientific, and clearly of exploration of human spaceflight is present in everyday life of those who live on Earth. And if possible, I can use these three elements of science, exploration, and technology to inspire our young people and, well, all the citizens, actually, to push the concept that you've expressed, the concept that space is a platform that allows us to see not only what's beyond, as my mission is called, but also how fragile our world is, the world we live in today. So, a push for everyone to do a little bit better. Thank you so much for the link, for your attention, and for your time, which is the greatest gift.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes our event as we count down to 20 continuing years of humans living and working on the International Space Station.
And thank you to all participants from ESA station. We are now resuming operational audio communications.
Concept that you've expressed, the concept that space is a platform that allows us to see not only what's beyond,